Welcome to the Carboniferous Period, a time when Earth was a world like no other, a lush, dense forest stretching across continents, teeming with life that grew to sizes we can hardly imagine today. This period, spanning from about 359 to 299 million years ago, belongs to the Paleozoic Era, a time when life on Earth was diversifying rapidly, setting the stage for the age of reptiles that would follow. Sitting between the Devonian Period, known for the rise of fish, and the Permian Period, which saw the rise of mammal-like reptiles, the Carboniferous stands out as a unique chapter in Earth's history. It was marked by towering club mosses, giant ferns, and swampy wetlands, creating a labyrinthine jungle where sunlight barely touched the ground. With oxygen levels at their highest in Earth's history, the atmosphere of the Carboniferous allowed plants and creatures to thrive and reach astonishing proportions. But in this ancient world, the dense forests and murky swamps weren't just home to giant plants. They were a hunting ground for some of the most nightmarish creatures ever to roam the Earth. Deep within the shadowy undergrowth, something immense and many-legged crept along the forest floor, its armored body rustling through the fallen leaves. A creature that seemed to belong to a different world entirely, and you'd never want to meet in the dim light of the Carboniferous. Hidden beneath this green canopy, Arthropleura roamed, a relic from a time when nature experimented with colossal scales. Stretching over 2 meters long, this ancient armored crawler was a behemoth among invertebrates, unlike anything we know today. Its body was divided into dozens of tough plate-like segments, each encased in an exoskeleton as hard as armor, glistening with the moisture of the humid air. Hundreds of legs rippled beneath it, moving in perfect synchronization as it crept over the forest floor. Its antennae, longer than a human forearm, waved through the air, sensing vibrations and chemical signals, allowing Arthropleura to navigate the dense, dimly lit world it called home. Every movement was a testament to its strength, its segmented form, bending and flowing as it pushed aside fallen branches and decaying plant matter. This was a world where size meant survival, and Arthropleura was among the largest, a true titan of the forest floor. For a human stumbling into this ancient forest, encountering such a creature would be a nightmare, a massive armored being with more legs than you could count, moving with a slow, unrelenting purpose through the shadows. The very sight of it would be enough to freeze you in place, its size and alien form unlike anything from the world we know today. But this armored giant wasn't alone in the forest's shadowy depths. Arthropleura carved its path through a world that thrived with life. Gigantic club mosses, massive horsetail ferns, and conifer-like trees that reached over 30 meters high. It moved through a labyrinth of roots and decaying vegetation, where fallen leaves piled meters deep, creating a hidden world of tunnels beneath the ancient canopy. Here, among the decaying plant matter that coated the forest floor, Arthropleura found its sustenance. It wasn't a fearsome hunter, but rather a master recycler, breaking down the detritus of the forest and turning it into energy to fuel its enormous body. Yet survival in the Carboniferous was no simple task, even for a giant. As Arthropleura lumbered through the undergrowth, it encountered fierce competition. Ancient amphibians, some nearly as long as itself, slithered through the swamps and shallow streams, while giant insects darted above, ready to strike at any opportunity. Despite its size, Arthropleura relied on its armored segments for protection, each plate capable of withstanding bites and strikes from smaller predators. Its sheer bulk and tough exterior made it a difficult target, but it also meant that moving through the dense forest was slow, making escape a challenge when danger arose. For a human, the thought of this creature lurking among the ancient trees would be enough to send chills down your spine. Imagine walking through a primeval forest and suddenly hearing the rustling of leaves behind you, turning around to see a creature taller than your knees, armored like a knight, with countless legs rippling in perfect rhythm. It wouldn't see you as prey, but its size alone would remind you just how small and out of place you truly were. One day, as Arthropleura moved slowly across a clearing, a distant rumble began to shake the ancient trees, signaling an approaching storm. The sky turned dark, and the air grew thick with electricity as wind whipped through the towering ferns, bending their massive fronds. The first drops of rain splattered against Arthropleura's segmented back, quickly turning into a torrential downpour. Streams formed rapidly, cutting through the leaf-littered floor, and the rising water threatened to drown the hidden pathways where the giant arthropod sought shelter. But it wasn't just the water that posed a threat. Fallen branches and entire tree limbs, loosened by the relentless winds, crashed to the ground, turning the forest floor into a dangerous obstacle course. Arthropleura moved with all its might, each leg gripping the slippery ground, struggling to find safety among the ancient roots of a massive tree. The storm raged around it, a chaotic symphony of wind, water, and crashing wood. Lightning flashed, illuminating the armored titan for brief moments as it fought against the elements. It was a test of survival, a challenge even for a creature that had thrived in these forests for millennia. As the rains began to flood its shelter, Arthropleura was forced to climb higher, lifting its body above the water's reach, clinging to the twisted roots that anchored the ancient trees. As the storm finally began to pass, the forest fell into an eerie stillness. Water dripped from the canopy above, forming new streams that crisscrossed the ground below. Arthropleura slowly emerged from its refuge, its antennae twitching as it tested the now calmer air. But while Arthropleura resumed its deliberate crawl through the tangled undergrowth, above, the skies held their own dangers. The canopy hid more than just swaying branches. A winged predator patrolled the air, its wings spanning nearly the length of a human arm, scanning for movement below. With eyes that could see even the faintest motion, this aerial hunter dominated the ancient skies, striking fear into anything that dared cross its path. It was Meganeura, the ruler of the ancient skies, an aerial predator that soared with precision and power. This creature, resembling a dragonfly but magnitudes larger, had a wingspan that could stretch over 80 centimeters, making it one of the largest insects to ever take flight. Its wings, thin but strong, shimmered in the dappled sunlight that broke through gaps in the forest canopy, each beat producing a low hum that echoed through the still air. With a body covered in intricate patterns and powerful, serrated jaws, Meganeura was a perfect design for the Carboniferous skies. Its enormous compound eyes, with thousands of lenses, could detect even the smallest movements far below, allowing it to track prey with lethal precision. It moved like a ghost through the air, its long, slender abdomen and needle-like legs cutting through the humid atmosphere. In a world where life grew to extremes, Meganeura was a master of the skies, gliding through the ancient air currents in search of its next meal. Meganeura ruled a domain where few could follow. It soared over the towering club mosses and giant ferns, weaving through the ancient trees that formed the Carboniferous canopy. Below it, the forest teemed with potential prey, smaller insects, early amphibians, and even the occasional arthropod scurrying across the forest floor. As it flew, it scanned the leaf-laden landscape, its agile body twisting and turning in a display of aerial acrobatics. In this oxygen-rich world, where creatures could grow to sizes unseen today, Meganeura thrived, perfectly adapted to a life of swift and ruthless hunting. For a human, the sight of Meganeura diving through the air would be enough to freeze them in place. Imagine walking through a dense jungle, only to hear the unsettling buzz of wings above, louder than any insect you've ever heard. Before you could react, A creature the size of a small bird might dart past your face, its compound eyes glinting with predatory focus, its jaws designed to crush the exoskeletons of insects. Meganeura might not see you as its typical prey, but any close encounter would leave you with a deep sense of dread, knowing that in the ancient Carboniferous skies, even the insects were giants. One day, as Meganeura hovered over a clearing, the air suddenly thickened with the tension of an approaching storm again. It darted through the rising winds, weaving between trees as thunder rumbled in the distance. A sudden flash of lightning illuminated the darkening sky, revealing the outline of the ancient trees, their branches bending in the violent gusts. But Meganeura had faced storms before. Its powerful wings beat against the chaotic air currents, each movement calculated to maintain balance amidst the turbulence. Below, the forest creatures sought shelter, but Meganeura remained aloft, determined to seize a final opportunity before the rain fell. It spotted movement, a large insect attempting to find cover. In an instant, it dived, folding its wings to gain speed. The wind roared around it, but Meganeura kept its focus, its eyes locked onto its target. Within seconds, it grasped its prey with its spiny legs, clamping down with jaws strong enough to pierce even the toughest exoskeletons. As the first drops of rain began to fall, Meganeura carried its prize to a sheltered branch, where it devoured its catch while the forest below transformed into a churning sea of wind and water. As the storm finally began to pass once again, the forest fell into an eerie stillness. Water dripped from the canopy above, forming new streams that crisscrossed the ground below. Meganeura slowly emerged from its perch, watching the chaos unfold below. Streams formed, carving paths through the dense forest, pooling into the swamps and rivers that wound through the ancient land. Beneath the churning water, another predator lay in wait, one that thrived where the forest met the murky depths. With its elongated body and powerful limbs, it navigated the submerged roots and reeds with ease, slipping through the water like a shadow. While Meganeura ruled the air, this hunter claimed dominion over the swamps and streams, ready to strike at anything that ventured too close to the water's edge. It was Eogyrinus, an ancient, eel-like predator that patrolled the dark waters of rivers and swamps. With a long, sinuous body that could stretch up to 4.5 meters, this giant amphibian was a relic of a time when the line between fish and early land dwellers was still being drawn. Its body was built for both speed and stealth. A sleek, muscular frame allowed it to glide silently through the water, while powerful limbs helped it push through dense reeds and muddy banks when it needed to move on land. Its head, flat and wide, was armed with sharp, conical teeth that lined a strong jaw, perfect for clamping down on anything that ventured too close to the water's edge. Its eyes, set high on its head, allowed it to keep watch even while mostly submerged, making it the ultimate ambush predator in its watery domain. To stumble upon this creature in the depths of a carboniferous swamp would be like stepping into a nightmare, a dark shape lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to strike when you least expected it. Eogyrinus was a master of patience, a true predator of the shadows. It thrived in the stagnant, oxygen-rich waters where decaying plant matter turned the swamps into dark, treacherous pools. It would often lie still beneath the surface, hidden among the submerged roots of ancient trees, where the murky water masked its long, serpentine form. For hours it could wait in silence, its eyes barely breaking the surface, watching for signs of movement, small fish, early reptiles, or anything that ventured too close. With a powerful flick of its tail, Eogyrinus could launch itself forward, closing the gap between predator and prey in a matter of seconds. In the dense, humid air of the Carboniferous, the swamps were a place of hidden danger, where every step could reveal a lurking threat. For a human, wandering into the waters where Eogyrinus waited would be like entering a trap from which escape seemed impossible. Imagine wading through a thick swamp, the water rising to your knees, when suddenly you feel a ripple against your leg, something large, something cold. The water darkens as a shadow slips beneath you, moving too fast to see clearly. Your heart races, knowing that somewhere in the depths, unseen jaws lie in wait. But suddenly, you hear familiar sounds. The forest darkened once again under an approaching thunderstorm, the swamps filled with the sound of raindrops, a steady rhythm that masked the movements of Eogyrinus. The rainwater spilled over the banks, turning the muddy streams into a roiling torrent that swept through the tangled forest. But unlike Arthropleura and Meganeura, who are desperately in need of a hiding spot, Eogyrinus thrived in this chaos. Its body cut through the surging currents, navigating the twisted roots and hidden channels like a shadow in the water. It spotted its next meal, a struggling amphibian caught in the turbulent flow, desperately trying to find purchase on a fallen log. Eogyrinus moved in silence, its body undulating like a serpent, each movement controlled and precise. And then, in a burst of speed, it struck. Its jaws clamped down with the force of a vice, dragging its prey beneath the surface in a flurry of bubbles. In an instant, the water turned still again, with only ripples marking the place where life had been snatched away. As the waters of the Carboniferous swamps calmed once more, the ripples left by Eogyrinus faded into the murky depths, and the forest began to settle back into its ancient rhythm. The air was thick with humidity, and the dense canopy above cast long shadows across the forest floor. But danger did not vanish with the retreat of the water's predator. In the undergrowth, another hunter crept through the darkness, moving with a slow, deliberate grace. Where the shadows stretched longest and the decaying leaves piled thick, a creature emerged from the hidden crevices of the earth. It was armored, silent and ancient, with pincers that could crush bone and a tail that held a venomous secret. The forests of the Carboniferous held many terrors, but few as unsettling as the giant scorpion that stalked the shadows. It was Pulmonoscorpius, a giant scorpion that reigned over the forest floor, its armored exoskeleton blending with the fallen leaves and decaying plant matter. Growing up to 70 centimeters long, this ancient arachnid was far larger than any of its modern relatives, a true colossus in a time when the air was rich with oxygen, allowing life to expand to monstrous sizes. With its segmented body, Pulmonoscorpius moved through the shadows on 8 jointed legs, each step taken with a calculated precision. Its pincers, thick and powerful, were capable of snapping through the shells of other arthropods, while its curved tail, armed with a venomous stinger, hovered above, ready to strike at any threat. Its many eyes, which glinted in the dim light, could detect even the slightest movement, making it a master of the Carboniferous night. For a human, stumbling into the domain of Pulmonoscorpius would be a deeply unsettling experience. Imagine a scorpion nearly the length of your arm, its pincers large enough to encircle your wrist, its venomous tail twitching with every step. It would be a sight that would make your heart pound in your chest. Pulmonoscorpius thrived in a world where every shadow could hide a predator or prey. The forest floor, littered with the remains of fallen trees and thick carpets of decaying leaves, was a labyrinth that it navigated with ease. By day, it hid beneath rocks or within the hollow trunks of ancient trees, waiting for the safety of darkness. When the sun dipped below the horizon and the temperature dropped, Pulmonoscorpius emerged, moving through the night like a living shadow, its pincers held wide and its tail poised for a deadly strike. It was a creature of patience, lying in wait until it sensed the vibrations of a potential meal, a smaller insect, or even an unsuspecting amphibian making its way through the underbrush. In a sudden burst of speed, it would lunge forward, pincers snapping shut around its prey, holding it tight while the venomous sting delivered a paralyzing blow. The struggle was brief, ending with Pulmonoscorpius dragging its prey back to its hiding place to consume in the cover of darkness. For a human, crossing paths with this ancient predator would be a chilling encounter. Picture yourself walking through a prehistoric forest at twilight, feeling the crunch of leaves underfoot. Suddenly you notice something move in the corner of your eye, something large, segmented, and moving with an unnerving, deliberate grace. You freeze, realizing that this creature is not like any scorpion you've ever seen. Its body stretches longer than a child's arm, and the air around you feels thick with danger. A single mistake, a misstep, could mean coming face to face with a venomous tail, ready to strike. One night, as the moonlight filtered through the thick canopy, casting eerie shadows on the forest floor, Pulmonoscorpius sensed movement nearby. The air was cooler, and a faint rustling reached its sensitive legs, a signal of potential prey. Its pincers twitched, and it moved silently through the leaf litter, each step carefully measured to avoid detection. There, in a small clearing, a large beetle scuttled over a fallen branch, unaware of the danger that lurked just beyond the shadows. With lightning speed, Pulmonoscorpius lunged forward, pincers snapping shut around the beetle's carapace. The beetle struggled, its legs flailing, but the scorpion's grip was unbreakable. In one swift motion, its tail curled over its back, driving the venomous stinger into the beetle's exposed side. The struggle stopped as the venom took hold, and the scorpion dragged its paralyzed prey back into the shadows. Above, the forest continued its nightly chorus, oblivious to the small but brutal drama playing out below. Now, imagine witnessing this scene from the safety of a hiding place, your breath caught in your throat. You'd see the shadowy form of the scorpion, moving with a speed that belied its size, the beetle's final struggle ending in a way that feels both alien and disturbingly familiar. It is a reminder that in this ancient world, even the smallest moments could be filled with danger. After a successful hunt, Pulmonoscorpius retreated to the safety of its hiding place beneath a fallen log. But the undergrowth of the Carboniferous was never truly silent. In the shadows, a new hunter emerged, larger, darker, and far more terrifying. Moving with the calculated precision of an apex ambush predator, it slipped across the forest floor with 8 legs that carried it swiftly through the dense ferns and rotting wood. This was Megarachne, a massive spider-like creature whose very presence could freeze the blood of any prey that ventured too close. Unlike its smaller modern relatives, Megarachne was a titan in the arachnid world, with a leg span of up to 70 centimeters. Its 8-jointed legs allowed it to move with startling speed and agility through the thick vegetation, and its large, heavily armored body glistened in the moist air. With a pair of strong, sharp pincers positioned at the front of its body, Megarachne was a deadly predator capable of taking down even larger prey. Its eyes, arranged in clusters on its head, gave it excellent night vision, making the dim light of the swamps no barrier to its predatory instincts. It could spot even the faintest movements in the undergrowth, and once locked onto its target, it could strike with a speed that seemed almost unnatural. Unlike other creatures of the Carboniferous, Megarachne was a master of stealth and ambush. It did not rely on brute force like Eogyrinus, nor the speed of Meganeura's flight. Instead, Megarachne would lie in wait, its massive body perfectly camouflaged among the ferns and decaying logs of the swamp. It would spin thick, sticky webs between tree roots or in tight corners, setting deadly traps for any creature foolish enough to wander into its path. When prey ventured too close, whether it was a small amphibian, insect, or another arthropod, Megarachne would spring to life. Its legs, long and powerful, could carry it across short distances with terrifying speed, closing the gap between it and its victim in seconds. The sharp pincers, dripping with digestive enzymes, would pierce through exoskeletons or soft flesh, injecting a paralyzing venom that would quickly subdue its prey. For a smaller animal, there was no escape once Megarachne had them in its grasp. It was a predator that needed no second chances. One strike was all it took. A true apex predator of the swamp, Megarachne would make any modern spider seem like a harmless insect in comparison. One particularly dark evening, a small amphibian stumbled into the web of Megarachne. The creature, a juvenile, struggled helplessly as it became entangled in the sticky strands of silk, its panicked movements only pulling it further into the trap. Hidden in the shadows, Megarachne remained motionless, watching the struggle with cold precision. And then, without warning, it struck. With a speed that was both horrifying and mesmerizing, Megarachne darted forward, its legs propelling it over the forest floor in a blur of movement. Its pincers snapped shut around the trapped amphibian, and within moments its venom had paralyzed the struggling creature. There was no escape, no second chance. Megarachne wrapped its prey in silk, preparing it for later consumption as it retreated back into the shadows of its lair. As the Carboniferous Period came to a close, the ancient giants of this world began to fade away. The dense, oxygen-rich forests that had once nurtured creatures like Arthropleura, Meganeura, Eogyrinus, Pulmonoscorpius, and Megarachne gradually transformed. The swamps dried, the air thinned, and the climate shifted, no longer favoring the titans that had ruled for so long. Arthropleura, the armored crawler, lost its leaf-laden haven, its massive form no longer suited for a world where space to hide became scarce. In the thinning skies, Meganeura could no longer dominate, its wings that once cut through the air struggling in the less buoyant atmosphere. Eogyrinus, the master of the dark waters, found its realm shrinking as rivers narrowed and swamps vanished, while Pulmonoscorpius, the shadowy scorpion, faced a forest floor that was changing beneath its many legs. And deep within the shadows of the ancient forests, Megarachne, the giant spider-like predator, saw its once perfect hunting grounds disappear. As the swamps dried and the thick vegetation that once offered perfect cover receded, Megarachne could no longer rely on stealth and ambush. The world that had nurtured its dark reign shifted, leaving no room for such a formidable hunter. These ancient predators, each adapted perfectly to their unique domain, ultimately succumbed to a world that no longer had room for giants. Yet, even as time swept them away, they left behind a story carved into stone, a tale of a time when Earth was a very different place, where giant insects, armored millipedes, and ancient amphibians ruled the shadows. Their legacy endures, reminding us of a world where the wildest creatures thrived, only to be humbled by the relentless march of time.